a little better.
How's that?
Yes, I think that's a little bit better. What do you think, Sherry?
I'm good. I can hear him very well.
Okay. Okay, good. Okay. Well, we've got a few more minutes, obviously, to before we begin, but feel free to put in the chat box, what are you thankful for today? And we'll be monitoring that.
Out of curiosity,
Out of curiosity,
can you hear me up here? Yes, you can.
Okay, we're getting an echo,
Okay,
yes.
let's try that. Is that better? So I only got half of it working. I still don't have sound.
Oh, you
Still
can't
call
hear.
back.
Trisha, I see that you've joined us. Could you just open your microphone and make sure we can hear you?
The computer now, so I should be okay. Can you hear me okay?
I'm
Yes,
good.
All right, great. Sorry about the delay there.
that's okay. Trisha?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. We just want to make sure that we don't have any microphone or audio difficulties.
Yeah, I
so-
don't know what happened there, but I'm back.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
Mhm.
Lori, today is the day for technology issues. Sharon's, Chuck's, Trisha's. We all
Yes,
better knock on some wood.
we are thankful for technology when it works. Can we say that today?
Yeah.
Okay.
Absolutely. Okay, I have the YouTube going and I have the recording going. We're good.
Okay. Well, I am thankful that summer lasted as long as it did because this cold that we've had for a few days is no fun.
Something we're thankful for. Well, I guess I'm thankful that when I'm here doing these projects, I have a nice warm place to stay and my wife comes with me, so that's good.
That's a good one. Thanks, Chuck.
I'll be thankful today for Josh because he came and fixed Sharon's IT problem.
Okay. Good.
Take
I
the
am-
lead.
I am looking to see, okay. I think, Tyler, if you can hear me, do you want to open your microphone and say something so that we know that your audio and technology is working? Tyler, are you able to hear me?
There-
Yep, I can hear you.
Okay, good. We're just doing a sound check.
Good,
So thank you.
no problem.
Okay. So, well, we aren't quite to 2 o'clock, so we'll give it just a little bit more time for people to join us before we start today. And we're just asking if you have something that you are thankful for to please share that with us, either in the chat box or through your microphone. With Thanksgiving just being a week away, it's a good time to think about those blessings and gifts that we have.
Well, I am grateful for the SCED staff because we are running like our hair's on fire. Everybody has continued to work together and have attitude, and I say pretty good. The exceptions probably Mine kind of tends to waver. So very, very grateful and grateful that I have 10 grandbabies. They're all healthy and number 11 is on the way.
Thank you, Sharon. And you have fun grandbabies, healthy and fun. So we will give just another minute or so before we get started to allow individuals to join us. Did I just hear somebody say something?
I think it was just somebody joining and their mic was on.
Oh, okay.
No, this is
Oh,
Carol
good.
Bodine. I was going to say, well, I'm thankful for my job,
Yay.
and my boss isn't even on the call.
Well, we're
Thanks for
thankful for your job too.
Yes. Thanks for sharing that, Carol. You are always a delight.
Thank you. You are all as well.
Okay. Well, I do want to honor our speakers' time today. So as people are starting to join us, I just want to say thank you to all of you for joining our November of 2022 HomeNE webinar. We started this program in February of 18, and we are at 50 plus webinars. So thank you for your faithfulness. Welcome and good afternoon. My name is Lori Ferguson, and I'm with South Central Economic Development District here in Holdridge. Once again, thank you for joining us today and for contributing to the growth of HomeNE. This was created to be a statewide learning network, and whether this is your first webinar or one of many, we hope that it is your goal as it is ours, that your organization or community is benefiting from the information and the opportunities that this learning network provides to you. So today we have the pleasure of participating in a discussion that is centered around a very important topic here in the state, and that is the Rural Workforce Housing Fund. And we're going to be focusing on successes that have been achieved by our participants, as well as the possibilities of the Rural Workforce Housing Fund. Our time today is being led by Sharon Hifley. She is the Executive Director here at South Central Economic Development District. And so at this time, I'm going to turn it over to Sharon.
Lori, welcome everybody. As you know, SCED serves as the lead agent for this learning network. And we're going to kind of dive into that purpose a little bit today and what that means for your communities. You know that we're designed for as a statewide network, so for people all across Nebraska to provide some interaction and a place where you can hear what's going on. And really, I just in that Friday night competition that it makes us better. And when you hear what others are doing, you're going to be able to say, oh, we can do that. And I know you're going to say only better. And I'll tell you, we're going to hear from some of our communities. So I might check your statement if you start thinking only better, because we have some of the best. But as we talk about what we're thankful for, I'm very thankful. I had two speakers back out on me, and this is Wing It Thursday also, because the three that are joining us really did say yes at the last minute. And I'm very, very thankful for that. So we're going to jump right in. We're going to be joined by Tyler Wickman of Pinnacle Bank in Palmer, Chuck Mix, who's a developer, who's part of his time here in Holdridge, and Trisha Allen with the city of Blue Hill. And Tyler has another commitment in just a minute. And so as he helps us showcase housing successes and the possibilities with Rural Workforce Housing Fund, we're gonna jump right into his story. I'll tell you a little bit about how we worked with Palmer, or how they utilize Rural Workforce Funds. And then I'll let him tell you about their side of that and what it meant to Palmer. And so you can advance the slide. The question that I posed to these speakers is, what has the access to a Rural Workforce Housing Fund meant for you and for your community? And so I want you to be thinking, what would it mean for your community as these guys tell what it meant to them? You can advance again. Tyler is the market president at Pinnacle Bank in Palmer. He's also president of the Palmer Economic Development Group. And we were able to provide a rural workforce housing loan to Palmer Economic Development to build a spec home. And Tyler, I'm just gonna turn it over and let you tell, and you can tell her when you want to change slides to the pictures.
All right, well, thanks for the ask, and here we go to winging it Thursday. So, yeah, Palmer is a town of about 500 people north of Grand Island, for those that don't know where it's located. We had a local, we'll say developer, some community people start with essentially developing 2 cul-de-sacs just off of Main Street a few years ago in the hopes of helping add housing to Palmer, because we were finding there wasn't enough houses available, or the quality of houses just wasn't there. So then our development or economic development kind of stepped in and decided, well, let's just build some houses and build some move-in ready homes for people to either come to the community or, you know, upgrade their current home. And well, the first couple went really well. With, we'll say, the demand being there, we tried doing 2 houses at once. But with being a small town economic development corporation, the funding really wasn't there to have the bank, we'll say, land on two spec homes. So then in step Scud and made a super simple, easy application, and allowed us to build another spec that is pretty well under contract. We're about 99% done with the house as it is. And yeah, I don't know, it was one of the easier applications I've ever seen or had to fill out. So go ahead and go to the next slide. That just kind of shows where the house is. And this is what it looks like pretty much year to date or current. Yeah, it's a good location. It's right across the street from the school and a daycare. So I think the ability to sell this house is there as far as ease of jumping right into the community with a young family. And without this lending capability or us qualifying for the loan, you know, we'd be behind the ball on, you know, offering houses to our small town. And yeah, it was, like I said, it was an easy application, easy advancements as far as easy inspections. You know, and for the rate they're providing us, you know, it was, you know, we were financially able to get the job done with relatively no growing pains. So no, it was greatly appreciated, and the town greatly needed it. And like I said, we're gonna be looking to do more in the future. So any questions, I guess, about the project? Or I don't really remember.
The cul-de-sac that we see in the bottom corner, that one now has this house and the other spec house that the economic development is building, correct?
Correct. Yep. So
And
yeah.
then the one
2
next to it that we saw in the plat, the 2 side by side. Sherry, can you hop back up there for just a second? So yeah, those 2 cul-de-sacs. The other one has 6 on it, or 4 on it, doesn't it? 6 homes in there already?
Yep, correct. So yeah, there's 4 homes already done, and people or families living in them on the left or the west side. And then these 2 homes are on the east cul-de-sac with another lot sold. And the people are looking to, you know, break ground in this next, you know, year. So, you know, this, you know, it worked out well doing 2 at once, and we're going to keep doing it until we can't sell them anyway. So, but yeah, it just brings a nice little polish to town, because where that light green line is a highway. So that's one of the first things you see coming into town. So this new development area kind of lets the town shine a little bit as opposed to what used to be there. So.
Tyler has to hop off. If you have questions for him, we're going to have to take them now. Does anybody have questions? You can put them in the chat, or you can, might be better to just unmute and pop in quick. All right, if not, thank you, Tyler. Appreciate you taking the time. Sherry, I'll let you advance two.
Yep. Thank you, Sharon.
Very good.
Appreciate
All right, thanks. So eligible uses of the fund. Cheryl Hyatt is on with DED. If I say something wrong, Cheryl, please hop in and keep us straight, because I sure don't want to be misrepresenting. I did copy paste these right out of the guidelines last night, but what can you do if you apply for rural workforce housing funds? And I hope you know why we're talking about this now. I know Leanne told you last month, showed you that this new application is out, a new round of money, $30 million. And so we're pretty excited about that, 50% match, which is half of what it's been for the previous two rounds. So we're hoping that a lot of you are looking at this statewide. And sometimes people around here look at us a little cross-eyed, like, why are you promoting this statewide? I mean, you could keep it to yourself and not do that. But you guys are also partners in the HomeNE statewide network. So we want to make sure that you're aware. So new construction of owner-occupied or rental housing is an eligible use. Substantial repair or rehab of dilapidated housing. That means putting at least 50% of the unit's assessed value back into it. Upper story housing, rehab that includes the conversion of an existing building. Next slide. For owner-occupied units, cost or sales price cannot exceed $325,000. For rental units, cost cannot exceed $250,000 per unit. And those costs include land and infrastructure costs. And then also eligible are some infrastructure developments associated with housing. And you probably need to talk to DED if you want to do that. Go ahead, next slide. SCED has received 2 grants through this program. And we say that you can do anything that rural workforce housing allows you to do. So all of those eligible uses except infrastructure. We haven't been asked to do that. That'd be a hard one, because if you tip it to get paid back, it's a 15-year, and where we cover 13 counties, it's really hard to do something in one town that you can't continually duplicate. So we have to work with our eye on that. But our investments are generally loans to contractors, economic development groups, developers. We could do CRAs, any legal entity. And generally we're doing those loans at 2%. And we've done a couple SCED owned projects. You'll hear about one of them today, but we've done two spec houses that we have been the developer on. So next slide. All right. Now I want to tell you about Chuck Mix. Chuck and his wife Ramona own Covenant Investments LLC. They spend some of their time here in Holdridge, and since he retired from being a plant manager at a manufacturing facility, he has been doing a lot of things, but among those, rehabbing houses. So Chuck, I'll let you take it away, and if you want to tell them a little more about yourself, that's great, and for sure what the access to these funds have meant for you and might mean for other rehab people.
Okay, sounds good. So the first house, the one you can see on the left there, that was our east house. That one was a very fun project. The house was built about 1908, somewhere between 1908 and 1912, best we could tell. And it just needed a ton of work. And so my company is mostly me. I've got some other people working with me occasionally. And of course, my wife helps like on all the demo and cleaning and painting and stuff like that. I try not to, give her anything electrical or mudding. She's just makes more work for me. Don't tell her I said that. But anyway, she's very helpful. But because it's just us, things go pretty slow. This house needed a lot of work. We ended up having to jack the house up and do some major structural things to it. That's a good example of the kind of houses that you find in a lot of these smaller Nebraska towns, especially the older towns. There's a lot of houses like that that have been around a long time. They're pretty dilapidated. They need a lot of care. You can find a small company or somebody who's, a niche player in the market who can rehab those, but it takes a long time, and a bigger company is generally not going to do that. It's just not the profit margin in it. But one of the benefits of a smaller company like myself, I can do just about everything, but it takes a long time to get it done. And that's one of the things that you see with a lot of these smaller towns is they have a lot of homes that need help, and there's not companies around that are going to take them on. The smaller companies like myself, oftentimes have a cash outlay problem trying to do a project like that for a long time. And so having this rural workforce fund available is really helpful. It's a good low interest fund. You got a year to work on your project to get things done and sell it and repay it. And so it really bridges that gap in providing funds for bigger projects like this or longer projects like this. So it's been really helpful for us. The second picture over there is our 141 Water Avenue house that I'm sitting in right now. That's one that right now we're rehabbing. I just put my first coat of paint on the ceiling, so we're making good progress. There was a substantial amount of termite damage in this house, so we had to tear out whole sections of the back of the house, open to the atmosphere and rebuild those and put it back together. You can see in this picture, it's got new siding and windows. At this point, we've got all the drywall done on the inside, and we're just going through painting and moving to floor coverings and stuff like that. When I worked on the first house, I lived here. Now that I'm working on this house, I don't live here. I live in Colorado primarily, but I'm here quite a bit working on these projects. There's this house and one more that I'm working on right now. And we just actually closed on 2 more yesterday. So we've got several projects going on. We always have something that we're working on. I did get one young guy that I hired him a few years back, actually on this East House project that you see on the left. And he's finally to a point now where he is doing this full time. He started his own little company, so he's working for me the majority of the time. And then when I can't keep him busy, he's doing other things. So that's really important as well, to have younger people in this market, because some of us are getting a little old. I don't know how many more of these I'm going to do before I'm done for, Let's see, a couple other things I wanted to mention. Oh yeah, when we're talking about workforce housing, I have a mosquito in my house. How is that possible? When we're talking about workforce housing, a lot of that can come from these older houses that need rehab. And if you don't have a good market or a good amount of workforce housing in your community, the families that are, coming there for jobs or whatever, they're going to live in Kearney, they're going to live in Lexington, and they're very easily poached by other companies, because another company like Baldwin or something else can offer them the exact same money, and they're essentially getting a raise because now they don't have to drive. And so having a good selection of workforce housing in your community is really important for the businesses in the community and just to keep the community healthy and viable. So I've used this loan. I think this is my 3rd one that I'm on right now, and 2 in process now, 1 paid back, and probably getting one of these done here in a couple of months, and be looking for a couple of more, because I think it's a great program and I really appreciate it. Tyler mentioned the application process is easy. It is. The fund flexibility is great as well. You could use it for a variety of different things. So I really appreciate working with these ladies and this program. So that's kind of it for me. Anybody have any questions?
Are you able to hang on to see if they have questions at the end?
Yeah.
Okay, all right, we'll let you advance that. Okay. Trisha is the clerk with the city of Blue Hill. And I want you to know that she is bold and courageous. She doesn't just do this, oh, I'm just the clerk, I can't do these things. She takes the time and uses her talent to research and embark on opportunities for the city. And this project was one that we partnered with Blue Hill. So this is one of the 2 spec houses that Sked did. We took proposals, hired a contractor, and entered a TIF agreement with them. And I believe Andrew Willis has talked about that on a previous webinar, where the CRA was able to give us this lot pad ready. And pad ready meant they put the basement in, they get paid back through tax increment financing. And then once it was pad ready, the basement was done, then they passed off, gave us that property, and we came in and put the house on top. Obviously, one contractor for the whole project. So it was kind of exciting. It was right in the middle of all of the price increases and shutdowns and all kinds of things. So Tricia and I made a little pact that we weren't going to try to remember all the painful parts of it, but it was a long process. But Tricia, I'm going to let you talk about what this project meant for Blue Hill.
Okay. Blue Hill is about 900 people, 20 miles south of Hastings. So we are a bedroom community, and we do have a lot of younger families moving back here or trying to move back here if they find adequate housing. We have a lot of amenities for a small town. So I think that's why they're attracted here. We also have grandparents lots lately that seem to be following the families to wherever they locate. So we haven't had a spec house since the 1960s built here. I had to ask our city superintendent that because I had no idea. So that's been a while. And when Levi was doing our nuisance, he thought this would be a great town to build a spec house in and partner. And I jumped on it. It took a little convincing of the council, but we got through. Just like Sharon said, I might reiterate a little bit. We ended up partnering with them. They use rural work housing funds. We used TIF for our part of it. Of course, transfer to the CRA. Andrew was great. The ease of it was working with Sked and working with Andrew, as far as having somebody that's very knowledgeable about TIF helps tremendously. So we did that portion, gifted it or transferred it to Sked. They finished. The bad thing was COVID. We started this agreement in 2019, and the house was not complete until June of 2022. Of course, the trouble with getting supplies, the difficulty there, difficulty of workers as far as our contractor having any help. It was him and his wife most of the time. But it, ended up good. So before it was complete, we had a gentleman that was living in a makeshift apartment here who is going to be the new manager for Glenwood, which is our biggest employer here. So he'd been living here, his family had been living in Kansas, and he was looking for housing this whole time. So he kind of jumped on this opportunity and was inquiring about it early and touring it before it was done. And basically, once it was completed, it sold immediately. We ended up negotiating price on it because he wanted to do the landscaping himself and finish some of that outside work just to get into it sooner. So it worked out great. It was about a $30,000 profit. So in the end, it was good. It was just a long haul to get there. So.
Nice, thank you. Anybody have questions? I think I saw a question for Chuck. Amanda, you want to ask that before we move on?
Yeah, so I was just curious. We have had conversations with local rehabbers on utilizing the rural workforce housing funds. And it's been a little bit of a difficult sell, I would say, for them to utilize that form of financing when they're like, well, honestly, we have a good enough relationship with our bank at this point that it's a more efficient process, probably, rather than applying for a loan through us. Utilizing those funds. And I was just curious if you had a similar sentiment, Chuck, or if you had any feedback on maybe how we could make that a more enticing process for them so that they would utilize the funds, because they're going to be rehabbing projects, whether they're going through us or the bank, pretty much.
Yeah, those relationships, I'm sure, are very important, but the low interest and just the ease of this process for me is a slam dunk. I have got some loans at the bank as well, for some other projects I'm working on, but I much prefer to do this. It's a low interest rate. It's quick, it's easy. I've just never had any problem with it. I really like the schedule of fund release. I mean, just everything's been really easy. I've not had any problem with it at all. So I don't know how you sell it other than the process is easy and the interest is very low. And I would think that would sell it right there. I mean, there's profit there if you look at it.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I was just,
Carrying cost for a project is very expensive when you have to look at insurance and you look at, the taxes, you look at utilities and all those kinds of things that you're paying every month. And interest is a big one of those. And if you're a small company, maybe the big companies, it's not quite so important because they can turn things quickly. But for a small company like myself, it's really important.
okay. Yeah. Kind of some of the feedback they had just given us were like, well, sometimes honestly, we don't know we're going to buy a rehab project until you see it one day and then basically they buy it and then they tell the bank they bought it versus planning in advance kind of. So we were like, oh, okay, well, so we're just trying to figure out how we can entice more of that rehab kind of work to utilize our fund, just so we can because we agree that, like you said, the rehab projects are going to be a little bit more appealing and affordable towards that workforce class. So thank you.
Well, and one of the other things that might be helpful too with the flexibility of funds, I think almost all, if not all, of the projects that I've used the workforce housing money on, I've purchased already as well. And so
Okay.
I'm using it for, the rehab, for, the materials, subcontractors, all that kind of stuff, to complete the project. So I'm not starting at zero. I've got some money that I can use for those other things, but this really bridges that gap. So maybe that's something to think about too. You don't have to do it. You have to plan that far ahead. I always talk to Sharon or Sherry, find out how much money is available and when it's available, so I can kind of plan, what projects are coming. So I have an idea. Of course, there's no guarantee there, but I guess your fallback could be the bank. But I would sure try this first, in my mind.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
We have more questions? All right, next slide, please.
I actually had one for Tricia. On that house that you said that it was one of the first spec homes you've done in a long time. So because that, other than the time frame problem you mentioned, that was so successful, are you guys considering doing another one?
I don't think Sked's doing anymore, last I heard, but that's who we partnered with. It's hard to find lots available here. We were lucky there. We purchased that lot for $15,000. It was a nice big corner lot. A gentleman just across the street from us had, a business owner had bought that with intents he was actually going to put a fourplex on it. And then he decided it wasn't going to be financially feasible or profitable enough for him. I don't know. He went another route for investment. So we were lucky enough to get that from him. The houses we have demoed here, the original plots were so small, like some of these lots aren't big enough to build on today. Unless you can get another adjoining, property, then you could do that sort of thing. Right now, we're actually looking at doing a 1031 and hopefully getting some lots and using TIF again to supply the infrastructure for new houses. So that's kind of what we're working on now. Not saying we wouldn't ever do that again, but we just have to have the available lots, infill lots, to be able to do that. So.
Gotcha.
Yeah, I
Thank
think
you.
Blue Hill has fewer vacant lots or vacant dilapidated properties that need cleared than most communities because they have been very landlocked for quite a while. So they've had to go really utilize a lot of stuff. So this was a great project for us to partner on because those lots aren't available in Blue Hill all the time. But being so close to Hastings, they're in that same spot. The superintendent told Lori and I here in Holdridge a few years back, he said, when we hire teachers, if they can't find housing in Holdridge and they move to Kearney, they'll have a job in Kearney within 3 years. And I'm sure that some of the case in Blue Hill being just, what are you, 20 minutes from
Yeah.
Hastings?
And
so-
that has happened, yes. Yeah,
And so it was a really, really good opportunity, and it ended up to be a good proof of concept. Had we not had them take the risk, we would have still been able to break even. So a contractor running it more efficiently, you know, not during a COVID season and all that, would be able to come out. And that was our hope too, that it would be a proof of concept in the community because they hadn't had a spec home. So
and unfortunately, we need somebody like Chuck in our area. We don't have anybody that takes that on here. We welcome somebody, but we just have the lack of that. So, but I think this promoted that sort of thing here in town. So I think it was great. And it kind of squashed some of the naysayers because I heard a lot of that. Oh, that's never going to sell. Why'd you do that? That's, blah, blah, blah. So, and then it sold immediately. So it kind of shut them up for a little bit anyway. So that was a good thing.
yeah, we couldn't get it done fast enough. And the family that bought it has 3 teenage boys that are 6 foot or more. So the school wanted them pretty bad. They didn't want them going into another school district too. In a small town, everybody in high school in those sports matters and all. So that was very fun. So I don't have anybody to talk about this except me. I just, flipping out another idea. I mentioned that you can do infrastructure. Phelps County Development Corp here in Holdridge, they did get rural workforce housing, and they used it to put infrastructure in this new subdivision that you see on the right. And there's just a picture of some of the things. They have several duplexes up there, and they're getting ready to start on, they have rental duplexes, some low-income housing tax credits, some townhome duplexes, and they're getting ready to start on the single-family part of that. So just to give you a different idea of some things that are happening also. And next slide, please. So Cliff and I chat off and on, but I hadn't seen his presentation on this, and I happened to be in Clarks, Nebraska, when one of his staff gave his presentation. So I emailed him last night and said, I'm totally stealing a slide from you, but he said it was okay. And I haven't seen if he hopped on. I told him he could hop on and set me straight. So Cliff, if you're on, you can talk about this. You were asking Amanda about how to entice people and all. And I think Cliff had some good ideas here. He says you don't have to give, if you have a rural workforce housing fund, you don't have to give it away, but you have to put it at risk. If you're going to use this fund as incentivizing incentivizing things that are not already going on, or people that are not already doing it to take that risk, then you have to put your money at risk. And he suggests 2 different options. First, you could do low or 0 interest, a soft second recourse loan, non-recourse loan. So what happens is you go in and subordinate to the bank. So that contractor, and he suggested in the projects that he's been involved in, they've done about $60,000 per home. It goes in as that equity and a soft second. And then the builder has time. They put their time and money into it. But if something happens and they sell that house at a loss, it's a non-recourse loan. The loss comes from the grant, not the builder. And when you're trying to get new builders going, I love, Chuck, that you've been doing building workforce while you're building, rehabbing houses. Somebody to start doing that same kind of work. But the minimum you can apply for this round is $100,000, which means you need a $50,000 match. Think about if you had a $150,000 fund, you could put $50,000 into each home as a soft second, be that equity piece, so that the bank's more willing to loan the rest of it. And you could have 3 homes going at the same time, potentially. Wouldn't have to be a new home, could be a rehab, could be a mixture. Could be a project turning a second story into housing, but it allows you to do multiple projects. Most of our projects we've done 100% on the new spec homes and all. So the second one he suggested is you could get a loan fund, get a revolving loan fund or a rural workforce housing fund, hire a builder to construct that home at a set cost, knowing that you would buy that home upon completion, the fund would, and then you resell it and assume the profit or loss. So a couple ways to think about it that becomes a little more appealing and maybe more likely to, like I said, just be an incentive. We do low interest because part of our fund is NIFA. That might not mean a lot to some of you, and since that's not being offered, when our applications, we've had to match 100%, and so NIFA did a portion of one of them. So we do charge 2% to comply with what we need to do to meet the regulations of that money. And we're probably, as SCED as an entity, we're not as willing to take a loss, because where am I going to take it? Should I take it in Holdridge or Blue Hill, and then pretty soon there's no money left for Shelton? So covering 13 counties makes us a little bit different than one community thinking about how they're going to use this money just within their corporate limits. So that I really appreciated his thoughts on that. Cheryl, if you're on, or Cliff, if you're on, if anybody wants to add something to that, and if there's questions, we'd like to take them.
Sharon, we've had this is Cliff. We've had awfully good luck with that process, and no one is really, I mean, no one's taken a loss. Everything's been profitable when it was done, and all the money has been turned back. But it allows us to go in and continue to build without having to stop and make sure everything is sold before we go on. And it puts the banks much more at ease as to how they look at it. And I think that process has worked well for us every place we've used it.
Nice, thank you. Any questions for Cliff or Chuck or Tricia or? Cheryl, do you want to have anything you want to add or straighten out?
No, I don't see anything that needs straightened out. Just that the new application cycle will open soon. We are a little bit delayed from what was proposed, mostly because of the inundation of other programs in our department. And Nick Derpinski, the program manager, is on paternity leave. Maybe 2 or 3 weeks early. So we'll get there, but we're finishing it up and it'll be posted soon.
Cheryl, do you have an idea yet when the letters of intent will be due?
I don't have that in front of me, but I will adjust them according to how we, when we post the application.
Okay.
I don't have what was proposed, but I think we're maybe 10 days.
Okay. Thank you.
December 7 was the proposed date.
Yeah, I think we'll have to push those ahead a little.
I think it was 30 days. I was looking at it this morning. It was 30 days after the publish, which was scheduled for November 7th. So that's what the guidelines proposed were.
Yeah.
So
yeah, and we're about 10 days behind, and I know it's not ready quite yet. So
thinking about it being Thankful Thursday, I'm very thankful for the DED staff. They are working tirelessly. They are having more thrown at them. I think we're running like our hair's on fire, but I know it's nothing like what DED has had to take on in this season. So I'm very thankful that they are so diligent and willing to work hard and long hours. I know by the times of day that I get responses from Cheryl, it's not 8 to 5.
well, I'm tired. I will tell you, I am tired. But we're doing our best to get those new programs out, and appreciate your support and patience greatly.
Any other questions? Lori, I'm going to hand it back to you. And share yours in advance.
I'd be happy to. Yes, if you do have any questions for Sharon or any of our speakers, Chuck, Tricia, maybe Cliff, if he's still with us, or Cheryl, if you have any application questions, if they would be so kind. This is the time. This is an exciting opportunity. We've never seen $30 million available for the rural workforce. There's been 2 cycles previously, but that was 7 million and maybe 10 million. Don't quote me on those numbers, but 30 million to be dispersed across the state. And as Sharon previously mentioned, a 50% match, not a 1-to-1. So if you can bring together $50,000, you can apply for 100,000, and what a difference that might make in your community. So this is your chance to ask some questions. We are monitoring the chat box, or would love to hear you open your microphone and ask those questions. We are providing Sharon's contact information, and if you had questions specific for any of our speakers, she will be happy to provide that information, or if they want to share their information while they're still on, they're welcome to do that as well, and we can type that in the chat box for everyone to see. So, but first reach out, feel free to make that Sharon. So,
one of the things that I didn't mention, because I didn't want to talk a lot about the application, this isn't an application training or anything else, but one of the questions I think that I'm hearing a lot more stir or confusion around is that the applicant does have to be a 501c3, 4, or 6. It doesn't mean that, I had a community ask today, well, so we're out of the water then, because our school and our hospital and somebody else, we're going to partner. Doesn't mean other people can't provide the match, but it does mean the applicant has to fit within those, has to be that eligible entity that's a 501c3, 4, or 6. And if you have questions about that, now's a good time to ask while Cheryl's on.
Right. So what questions do you have? Or maybe something jumped out at you. You heard something in a different way today about rural workforce. This is the opportunity to comment or ask those questions. Well, maybe hearing none, maybe you're still pondering those. Feel free to add those to the chat box. But I do want to remind you that today's webinar, as well as all past webinars, are going to be available to you at our HomeNE.us website, and that does have a searchable feature to it. So sometime after today, you can go on and maybe search for this webinar or others with different topics. Feel free to check that out. And just as we begin to wrap up too, we need your stories. As Sharon mentioned, at the last minute, we lost a speaker, but we want to know, do you know of a story that could be featured on HomeNE, maybe a future webinar? It doesn't always have to be a success. Sometimes we learn from a failing. And so we want to hear those lessons learned. It doesn't even have to be within the state borders. It can be from another state. We've had Pipestone, Minnesota featured. We've had attendees from outside of Nebraska. So people are listening, and we want to know. And maybe if you're not comfortable reaching out, if you could just give us the contact name and information about a potential speaker. We'd love to know what you're hearing across the state and the region that we could feature on a future HomeNE. Just reach out to myself or to Sharon and give us that information, and we'll do all the legwork for you for an upcoming future HomeNE webinar. So, seeing no questions popping in the chat box, just want to remind you that our next webinar will be in January. We do take the month of December off here at the HomeNE Learning Network, so we will be keeping you posted on that topic, but it is the third Thursday of every month, except for December. So January 19th, 2023, that doesn't even seem possible. So keep that circled on your calendar and be watching your email for information about that webinar. So Sharon or Chuck or Tricia, any final thoughts, comments, questions?
I just hope you'll think a little bit outside the box as you figure out how maybe your community can put in an application. And then when you get down the road a little bit, tell us so we can have your story featured on a HomeNE webinar. If you have questions specific to uses of the grant and all, though, please reach out to Nick Drapinski at or DED, because we are not the experts on that. We can only tell you how we're doing it.
Right. Okay. With that, that concludes our webinar for today. And I hope for all of you a blessed Thanksgiving and holiday season. And